Hey everybody, this is Jon Croft and this is Cultural Warfare with Jon Croft. We're talking episode 17, what is Media Moses? So now we're going to get into the meat of Media Moses. What's Media Moses about? How did I get to this point? As a musician and then as a filmmaker for 15 years. And then now as a media guy. And it's not so much, I don't think of it as journalism so much as talking about entertainment and talking about culture. All the stuff I've learned about filmmaking and all this stuff, it's just a lot of fun for me because I've always enjoyed talking about it anyway. So now I get to where I once was the guy who was completely ignored, right? Because who cares about conservative media and entertainment, to being somebody who is needed, right? Because where before I was trying to make productions or films and people didn't see the value of them, now people are saying, oh, maybe we should be making that now. So this is something that people just thought, oh, Jon's going to go to Hollywood, Jon's going to go make films, and if not, maybe he'll make video and make a business doing video production or something. Like, who knows what Jon's going to do, but we don't have to worry about it. Like, Jon's got it taken care of, he's fine. And now they're starting to realize, oh, like maybe maybe Jon's doing something valuable actually in the culture. Like, I didn't think of that before. So, and there's lots of other people like me, right? There's lots of people like me out there who also care about the quality of our entertainment as it comes to the moral values that are being inculcated into the skulls of mush of our kids. So what's going in there? What kind of mush is in our kids' soup? Like what's in their cereal in the morning? And so people are starting to care about it, I think. And this is when people like me are needed. So this is my time right now. This is just beginning. And so we're going to talk about what is Media Moses. I think Rebecca's here.
I'm here.
Oh, you're there. Good. Lovely. I'm glad you're here. Finally, I'm a little bit more prepared this time to talk about Media Moses, right? Like before, I was pretty much, I was doing everything last minute, last second. But if we want to talk about what is Media Moses is an entertainment news website publication for conservative and faith-based media. So we look at conservative and faith-based as like American media. Like that's kind of how I look at it. Or you could say traditional American media, which is non-woke. We don't ascribe to the newest, latest political thing, which you're supposed to do in Hollywood. But we just don't think that's an essential part of what entertainment is about politics or ideology. We don't really think that that's true. So we want to distinguish ourselves from this new fad that's happening in Hollywood and say, hey, we believe in more traditional purposes for culture and not for some political agenda. So that's us. We believe in doing that. We want to basically have discussions on culture, storytelling, craftsmanship, filmmaking, art, music, industry stuff, news media, podcasting stuff, literature, books, comics, video stuff, lifestyle stuff, health stuff, building your community, stuff like that. So we since we're working to build this community, that's an important subject to us, right? So we're working to build this community. We're working to be an essential part of this community. You know, obviously our name is Media Moses, so there's a story behind that, and I'll get to that in just a second. But if someone was to ask, like, well, what kind of communities are you talking about, right? Like some of the things I just mentioned, these kind of like expressions in media are important. So some of those are going to have a community surrounding them, like social media. There's a podcasting community, an influencer community, filmmaking, streaming community. The people who care about stuff like Mythopoeia, C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, these kinds of communities. The art community, music community, of course, very essential. Writers, journalists, critics, illustrators, video people, ad people, marketing people. Like all of this is very connected to the media part of Media Moses, right? So that's what we care about. And so I guess I can get to the Moses side of Media Moses, right? I just talked about the media side of it. Now it's the Moses side of it. So why Moses? Well, you could probably guess why. I wanted to make it fairly obvious, but it's about the movie The Ten Commandments. No, not really. I mean, it is, right? That's the golden age of Hollywood. A movie called The Ten Commandments with, is it Charlton Heston? But it's not really the movie. It's the actual biblical, historical account of Moses leading his people out of Egypt, right?
Yeah.
So I've spoken about this before, but it bears repeating that when you're in a cultural crisis the way we're in, or cultural collapse the way we're in, this is kind of what was happening then, right? So the Jewish people were basically being enslaved in Egypt, and but in some ways they were very comfortable in Egypt. So in some ways they appreciated their lifestyle in Egypt, even though the Egyptians didn't always like goat herders and didn't always like them, right? They were scared of them. So they kind of marginalized the Jews in Egypt. And God wanted his people to be free from slavery so that they could worship him in the wilderness. So, and what? Fulfill the promise to Abraham to form a great nation. So this is about cultural creation. They're creating a nation, and they're creating a people. They're creating an entire culture. So culture creation is really not that complicated of a process, but I think if you're not into culture like me, you're not into the arts and stuff like this, it's a little more complicated. And you might not fully understand it, but our culture is under attack right now, and our culture it's called the Cultural Revolution. So it's going on in Hollywood and other places around the West, and so we're experiencing cultural collapse as a result, and so we need to engage then in, like, we've tried to reform Hollywood. This has failed. And the reason is because it's a very effective thing happening right now in Hollywood. They have gatekeepers, and they keep things pretty clean over there. And so they don't want our types of people over there. And so we have to essentially do what the Daily Wire and Angel Studios are doing, and I spoke about them last week. But this is about doing something outside of Hollywood that is Hollywood unapproved, and it lambasts the narrative that Hollywood puts out. So, you're you're engaging in what's called cultural creation. Then, so here's what cultural creation is basically. It's a I consider it a 3-step process. I guess you could consider it a 4-step process, but basically you have a community, and that community must filter your community experiences. So every community goes through experiences, and they have to filter these experiences, such as resource, wealth propagation, war and conflict, sin and crime, all these experiences that can be traumatic to a society and difficult for a community. You have to filter out these experiences. So you do that through culture. But in order to engage in culture creation, you have to filter out these community experiences through stronger, more resilient community filters. And those filters, also known as institutions, right, such as the family, the church, your male or female connection groups, your trade occupational communities, your critic and educational institutions, your community leadership, and your governmental institutions. All of those have to be stronger, more resilient filters, right? And so you get community, you get experiences, you filter them out through these institutions, and then what you get on the other end is cultural tools, which are forms of expression, right? You form those experiences into forms of expression. And so those forms of expression are things like your language, your holidays, your essential writings, your media and your news, all your art forms, and then eventually you boil it down to civilizational myths that define your culture accurately. So those are what I consider cultural tools. They're things that you use to deal with these difficulties you might go through. And so these are forms of expression, right? And so whenever you're expressing yourself in your community, you're often using these tools, these cultural tools. And then those things reach the 4th step, which is these things help mankind to learn, to heal, to survive, and to thrive no matter what threatens us or our children. So that's basically how to engage in cultural creation. You have to build stronger filters so that you can help heal from difficult community experiences. And then you form stronger cultural tools from that. And those could be forms of art. Those could be more robust language or holidays or, excellent forms of media, teaching tools, and then there's your myths, which are many of these things all together in one. They could be a teaching tool. They could contain your language. They could contain holidays in them or days of observance. They could contain all kinds of news or history. And so these myths are very powerful. And they're often what gets boiled down after years and years, maybe possibly hundreds of years of creating cultural tools. Eventually you get down to some myths. And as I've spoken of before, J.R.R. Tolkien and Lewis called their own genre mythopia, which is an intentional creation of myths. So I'm a fan of mythopia. I think this is a great cultural tool. It's a highly effective cultural tool, but it requires that you understand your culture very implicitly in order to do that. So obviously Tolkien was an expert in Western civilization and culture. That's just why he could make Lord of the Rings. So that's culture creation. You have to engage either as a filter, an institution, or you have to become a tool creator and create tools, cultural tools. So you could see this as a curator or an artist, essentially. Um, but a curator basically filters, and an artist basically makes cultural tools. And it goes in a cycle, right? So you start with a community experience, it goes through a filter, a tool gets created, and it becomes again a community experience, right? That tool gets experienced by the community and becomes an experience, and then you filter again, and then that becomes another cultural tool, right? So it's a reaction to the reaction, and this just continues on in culture, and your culture grows more, evolves greater and more robustly, and then it can survive anything that comes at it. So if people start breaking down the filters, or they start breaking down the tools, then this cycle doesn't continue to evolve into something greater. It devolves and it gets unwound. And that's what we're seeing now with cultural revolution, is an unwinding of cultural power. So that's culture creation. And hey, honey, are you there?
I'm here.
What is the other? Is there?
What does Media Moses plan to do? What kind of culture do you guys plan on creating?
Oh yes. What do we intend to do? Yeah, thank you. I was lost there for a second. But we plan to help communities, like be a part of the community, help communities to learn to use filters better, to participate in news, media, art, and critical institutions. And we hope to help conservative religious artists who have been severely underserved to make better work, to create better cultural tools, which can help teach mankind these same wise methods of filtering. So filtering these difficult experiences is hard. Like we've spoken about this in the past, but how culture is a healer, right?
Yeah.
So that's essentially what I'm talking about, is that whole process. In that entire cycle, that's essentially a healing process. So when, let's say, a society, as mankind went through in the early 1900s, right, they went through 2 world wars, and as a result, men left the church and went on the battlefield. Women took over the church, and it's still feminine to this day. But men didn't return to the church. And I'm speaking, of course, the reason I'm talking about it in these terms of the church is that I'm a Christian, and so it affected my culture, my particular culture, very deeply. Right? To go through these 2 world wars means that the church hasn't returned to its patriarchal roots, right? Which is biblical, and for 100 years we haven't been there. So if people wonder like why the church is the way it is right now, especially in the West, like the breakup with the Methodist Church, for example, like these are big shakeups in culture, and they affect millions of people. And so the fact that men didn't re-enter the church in a way that was that followed that cultural healing process, it didn't get to go through that healing process. This is why the church has not fully recovered from this in the West. So that's my belief. My belief is that all the wars, all the world wars, and then when we were gone in World War One, and then we went through the 20s, the Roaring 20s, and all these things, and then the Depression, and then another World War. Like every decade is punctuated by difficulty, and so you don't get a chance to recover. And as a result, my belief is that men never really returned to the church to become the patriarchs they were meant to be in the church, and instead they were still trying to heal from all this stuff. and so this didn't take. The culture wasn't vibrant, strong enough to heal them. And so to this day, I believe we still have, a very feminized church. This is why a lot of things don't get done in the church. This is why instead of church plantings, there's church splits, right? This is why there's a lot of difficulties like this in the church. But that's kind of my take on that, and but it's supposed to follow, like I said, it's supposed to follow this healing process. And when there's an issue somewhere along the way, then it's not able to do that. Hey, your phone is doing the same thing again, honey.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I'll mute myself.
Just turn off that app or whatever it is. But I've written some things down tonight because there's just so much to go through. And as you can tell, I've had to go through a lot of my writings and about this company and what we intend to do. And I just have an enormous amount of, like a ton of insight about why this was such a compelling project for me to do, especially to change from filmmaking. A lot of the reason I was doing filmmaking and I'm not now is because I had kids. And I didn't want to be, flying off too much and doing other things too much. It's kind of like being a musician, right? Going on tour. It's like sometimes that's a good and sometimes it's not a good thing for a family. So I felt that it was good for me to have a home base where I could participate in community building. And so I started what's called Film Bar Mondays in the Tampa Bay region, the Tampa Bay chapter. Film Bar Mondays was derived from Atlanta film community. And so I went up there and asked the head cheese over there if I could take this same concept and move it down here. And I am doing that now, although I am on hiatus right now, so I'm not I'm not meeting. Our organization isn't meeting right now. But that was kind of like what I started doing for the local film community when I started having kids. So I think it's been 8 years now doing that. And then after the pandemic, then it became more about like I wanted to do faith-based film. I felt that the culture was suffering and we didn't have I've been working to make whatever kind of film or media that AFM distributors would have. And some of that was horror because a lot of horror gets made locally. But I'm not always a big fan of horror. So this was difficult for me to find the right projects that I wanted to do, but also my distributor was interested in. And so there was a lot of difficulty there for me. And going to LA was not always fun. I didn't like it. I mean, we thought about moving there. And I decided we shouldn't do that. So, but that was a question for maybe 5 years there, where we were struggling with that. So I spoke with my friend Tim Mannix for a few years there, and we did a podcast called the Film Bar Review from 2021, 3 years ago now. And out of a lot of those conversations, I determined that doing a project like Media Moses would actually be very beneficial, not only to me, but to a lot of other filmmakers and artists. and people who don't get heard, don't get seen, don't get noticed, right? And so there's a lot of great filmmakers, much better than me, filmmakers better than me, musicians better than me, writers better than me, that nobody seems to care about and know about. And so for me, it was, if I ever do get into film again or music again, nobody's going to know who I am anyway. So it's like, because I've tried putting stuff out there before, and you're just wading through a sea of competition for people who have content that they're interested in watching, and they're not interested in seeing my content because my content is often cryptic and often strange and faith-based. So a lot of people in Hollywood don't want that. They're not interested in that. So especially if it's cryptic on top of it, it's just like, because it's not that they don't accept faith-based work there. It's just that the faith-based genre is very strict. So it's probably the most strict genre that exists in film. And so this was not looking good for me. This is why I didn't do faith-based film for a long time. And now that I'm seeing people like I mentioned before, people like the Daily Wire and Angel Studios, this gave me a glimmer of hope, because I'm thinking, oh, this is an outlet for my work. And I'm thinking mostly of Angel Studios because Angel Studios has utilized the crowdfunding platform to great effect, and they're faith-based. So to me, this is a big eye-opener. Like, I wasn't that interested in them before, although I do love The Chosen. I didn't think of it as, I didn't think of it like there was going to be more than one thing. I thought it was just going to be maybe be The Chosen, maybe another project. But for me, it was just The Chosen. It wasn't about Angel Studios. And then I learned about Angel Studios. I learned about what they were doing. And I was like, a lot more can happen from this platform. It's not just stuff like The Chosen, which I do really value. In fact, I was working with someone who had worked on The Chosen as an extra, but she had met a lot of people on set. And I had met one or two people locally who ended up working on The Chosen as well. So there were some connections there. And so I thought, maybe go to Texas, try to get get some funding and make a film with some people that have worked on The Chosen. And so we were working on a project that was called the Mantle of Old or something, it was called Mantle of the Prophet or something like that. And it was about Ezekiel, it was about Elijah and Ahab and Jezebel. And there was another Bible story in there too. But I'm still kind of interested in working on something like that. But the particular people we were working with, that fell through. So, but again, these were all opportunities that were pointing me in a certain direction. And now that I was seeing more quality craftsmanship happening in faith-based media, I felt like this is something for me, right? This is also going to draw more artists like me into that community. Like, I'm not daft to this. The fact that this is affecting me, it's going to be affecting a lot of other people too. So, stuff can snowball from this. And so eventually it might not even just be Angel. There might be other platforms that form from this. In fact, there's also Lore TV. And now, rumor has it that The Chosen, who is breaking away from Angel Studios as we speak, might be forming their own platform as well, which might be making more than just The Chosen, because they have their own foundation called the Come and See Foundation. And they, as far as I know, are going to be using similar, not the technology, because that's patented technology by the Angel Studios, but they probably will be using a crowdfunding platform of a sort to get other projects greenlit. So that's exciting for me. But the thing is, I don't see this as just art and media and film. I see this as a whole community. So because I was a producer for a while, I know that films aren't made with just a filmmaker and some actors and a camera guy. And no, that, go ahead and make your film, and then who's going to watch it, right? How are you going to distribute it? Like, who's going to talk about it? Are any critics going to see it? And so there's a whole community that people often forget about when they think about culture, they think about entertainment. They just think about the director, like they think about the filmmakers there, like they think all of our tickets are going to be paying these people. No, that's not how it works. It's a far more complicated community of people. And, Hollywood, I've said this before, Hollywood is Tinseltown for a reason, right? It's made on marketing. It's made on smoke and mirrors and stories written about them, right? The star system was so effective for so long because the star system is a marketing machine, right? And so their stars of their studios, the studios basically owned their stars. Like they had contractual agreements with these stars, and the stars also had like a morality clause. They could not look, basically they couldn't be culturally insensitive people, because if they were, they would make the studios look bad. So it's about putting on a good face for the company, and people understood this back then. They be a company man. You got to play ball, and why would you want to look unsavory anyway? So you are the face of the company, and you do a lot of marketing for the company. And so you talk about the film, you talk about the story of the film, and in between projects you talk about culture and lifestyle and all kinds of other stuff. And what happened in Hollywood? Well, since the 70s, actors have become more and more and more ideological and political. And this doesn't relate to most Americans, right? Most Americans, they just want to be entertained and have fun, on the weekends. Maybe watch an award show or something. Watch a few laughs, and be excited and interested and, by this movie. And instead, Hollywood has turned from their roots of being an entertainment and fun machine and has become this dour, sour, dark, ideological, a place where you should feel guilty if you don't follow the same politics, right? And so this is just not... The tinsel of Tinseltown has rusted, right? But we understand what made Hollywood great. And this is one thing that conservative and faith-based media do not understand. They don't understand that without people like me, nobody's going to talk about your film, right? So you need to have people who talk up these stories, talk up these actors, talk up these filmmakers, and talk about the good and the bad and the ugly and all these things. And we need to be authentic people who really care about the craftsmanship and the art and the cultural side, the impact that these stories have on the culture. And so, where you can find authentic people, who aren't part of the access media, right? Then you've got authentic culture creation. And where you don't have authentic people, you don't have actual culture creation. You have a bunch of fake people, you know, who are saying what they're supposed to say and not offending people. And that's not how you make art. That's not how you make culture. So, this kind of behavior has to be, you have to stay away from this kind of culture, because it spreads too. It starts affecting you. It starts changing the way you think. And you start to think, oh, I don't want to offend people, so I shouldn't say this or that. Well, now your whole interview is lame. Nobody wants to listen to that, because you're just trying to sell a product now. You just want me to click. You just want me to buy your product. This is not authentic anymore, right? And people can sense this. So I've talked about this as well, like how authenticity is the currency of new culture. It's the currency. And if you are not in the realm of authentic culture creation, you're not in the black. Like, you're in the red, and you're not going to be part of this new culture. People are going to see right through you and say, well, they're just part of old Hollywood. They're the same thing. I've seen it, been there, done that, right? And so you could even try to impersonate yourself as an authentic person. But as soon as you mess up and you start to sell a product, right? And you start to be like, toe the party line, you just lost your place in the new culture. So the new culture is authentic. The new culture cares about art, cares about culture, cares about culture creation. Real storytelling, real myths that we value, that has an impact on society. Like, that's the stuff we care about. So real people. And so this also affects things like the star system, right? If we're going to have a star system, these have to be authentic people. They can't be like the same actors from Hollywood. They have to be a new breed of people who are very authentic, who care about traditional values, right? And who aren't interested in self-glorification. They're just not interested in that, because that's what Hollywood's all about. It's all about self-glorification. So if you have that Hollywood thing on you, people are going to sense it. They're not going to want that, right? And you're just going to be seen as just another one of those Hollywood actors trying to sell an ideology or some new snake oil you're trying to sell, right? These people are inauthentic. They're boring. They're boring people. They have nothing to offer, no ideas of their own. They're just saying what they're told to say. Like, how uninteresting is that? So it's you're breaking the primary rule of Hollywood, which is to not be boring. And these big celebrities all break it. All of them. So they're all hypocrites. They're breaking the most important rules of Hollywood, every day, by just following the same ideology as everybody else. So, but like there's things we want to be involved in that are, I think are good ideas, and they're ideas to help build communities instead of tear down and divide communities. Like, if you guys saw The Sound of Freedom last year, right? The Sound of Freedom is about protecting our children, our communities from human trafficking. And this is why Hollywood didn't like it. Because they don't want you to do that. They don't want you to protect and defend your children from them. So, they don't want you to know this exists, right? Because then now you got an eye on Hollywood going, what are they doing over there? They don't want you to look twice at them. So, but my point in bringing up Sound of Freedom is to say that Angel Studios And there's good filmmakers out there, right, who really want to make change in the world. They're doing what artists were always supposed to be doing, which is championing real issues in society and forming solutions with those issues, right? So the people involved in this film are about trying to stop human trafficking. There's a whole slew of organizations that surround them, and they're providing opportunities for you to give to these organizations to also contribute to stopping human trafficking. And this is a valuable service that they're doing. They're raising a ton of awareness. Well, guess what they're doing now, right? Same time this year, 2024, a July 4th premiere of a new film called The Sound of Hope, right? So obviously this is related because it wasn't called The Sound of Hope before. They rebranded it to make a statement. I don't know, it's like rebranding when people do that. It's like, what are you going to do? Pick a side or whatever. But when I saw what they were doing, I was like, oh, I'm going to look closer into this. Well, this story called Possum Trot, which is made by executive producer Letitia Wright. If you don't know who Letitia Wright is, she was Princess Shuri from Black Panther. So Marvel's Black Panther, Princess Shuri, she's a Christian, and she decided to get involved in making films that matter and make a difference in the world. And so I'm proud of her. I think this is a really great project, and what she's doing is incredible. And so she executive produced this project. It was called Possum Trot, and now it's called Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot. Well, so what is this Possum Trot? Well, Possum Trot is a small town in Texas, East Texas, where a community in a church noticed a problem with the kids and the foster care system. They prayed about it. This is a true story. This is all based in a true story. So this entire church community prayed about what do they do about their community and how can they help? So I think it was 22 families decided to adopt 4 or 5 children each family. It's like 77 children they adopted. I mean, what an outpouring of the heart. Like this, like, and then, so how is this related to Sound of Freedom, right? It's related to Sound of Freedom in every way. Why? Because they're saying this is the solution. Maybe there's other solutions too. We're not saying this is the only one. But they're saying a good 90-something% of cases of, like child abuse, human trafficking with minors are kids in the foster care system. That's a huge portion of children that are being abused, right, in some way. Might not be by the foster parents, right? It could be in some other way. It could be some human trafficking going on or something through social media. But there are instances of abuse with this many children in the foster care system. And so this movie presents a very clear, I'm not saying it's easy. It's not an easy solution. You don't change the world easily, right? This is not something you just decide to do. No, you give your life for things like this, right? But this is how our communities can make a huge change in the world against something as evil and horrendous as human trafficking of children. Like, if you really want to take on something as evil and horrendous as human trafficking, right, which Sound of Freedom has presented the truth about how terrifying and terrible this epidemic is in the world, and how this is a growing epidemic that's so terrible now it's surpassing the drug trade, as Jim Caviezel so aptly put. By the way, his performance, oh my goodness, his performance was so incredible. When that guy cries, I'm just like, Wow. Wow. I don't think I've seen anyone shed tears where I was just like immediately crying after them.
Yeah.
That dude, man, I love that guy. But he's like a real star in my view. He's my kind of star. If you're going to make a new star system, he belongs on that new system, right? Because he is one of these people who decided to give his life to serve Christ through acting. Like that's like who says that? Who says something like that? You don't see that kind of ethic in the church much these days, where people are literally following in the footsteps of Christ, giving their life for something, right? That they might not even want to do, but God's gifted them and they have to sacrifice. And acting and arts can be a sacrifice. But like, we're talking about real life-changing stuff here, guys. This is not the latest Hollywood picture where you eat your popcorn or your Netflix and chill moment. No, this is a moment where you get to see with your real eyes the real world you live in and what it's like. And this is unvarnished, right? And then you're presented with an option. Am I going to do something about it? Or am I going to just Netflix and chill the rest of my life?
Yeah.
Boring, like, So Possum Trot presents a very real scenario that our local churches could also participate in to actually make a difference in human trafficking around the world. Not just in America, because our influence on the world human trafficking trade is enormous. So if all we did was stop it here, it would change the human trafficking around the world. So it literally could change the world if people watch and listen to this film about how to solve abuse of our children. So, we in the church, we cannot just shirk these responsibilities. We have to truly take a look at our communities and say, what can we really do to actually help people? Not to have a nice presentation and a nice speech, right, when they come in and make yourself look good, right? And wear your tie. Like, this has been the problem in the church for the last 100 years. We look so presentable, right? But we're not being like Christ. Christ wasn't doing that. He wasn't trying to look presentable to anybody. No, he often offended people. He offended the religious leaders. He did hard things, okay? And he broke the world's system of evil as a result. It's broken. Okay, it's not going to go back together. All right, I've talked about this with Gnosticism. Christ destroyed it, right, through faith. And Gnosticism is a system of evil where you have to pay for your own sin, and you're never going to pay for it, friends. You're never good enough. So Gnosticism is an evil system of control. And agnosticism is just a confused mess, right? So if you don't want to become Gnostic and you want to be agnostic, well, you're just going to be confused the rest of your life. You don't know if there's rules in the world. You don't know if there's no rules. You don't know if you're capable of doing these things, or you have no ability to do anything and accomplish anything. You're just like everybody else, egalitarian. You're not special. You can't accomplish anything. And how do you earn your salvation? You don't. You die. And the worms eat you. Congrats. Like, that's no way to live. Like, just off yourself now. How boring is that? I'm just bored thinking about it. And it's not to be cruel to so many people and their belief systems, but like you really got to logically look at where these belief systems lead. They don't lead to something that's worthwhile. Like purpose in your life vanishes the more you think about it. The more you think about the cold, dead universe outside of our solar system, the more you're like everything's dividing and separating and getting cold and getting like, where does this leave you? You know, like transhumanism, is that going to be really that interesting? Really, you think that's going to be more interesting? Oh my goodness, you want to live in a digital hellscape that might not work tomorrow, and you might not even be able to communicate how much pain you're in, trapped in this digital cybernetic organ thing in your brain. Oh, that sounds really promising. Good luck with that, Elon Musk. I'm not saying that his thing doesn't work at all. Like that's not. I'm talking about transhumanism, right? This whole philosophy. It's just not. That's not hopeful to me. That doesn't seem very inspiring. But I think a lot of people, they just don't know what else to do. So, you know, hey honey, I know I got off track somewhere. So do you know where I'm supposed to be right now? What do you think?
Let's see. I was just sort of waiting for an opening, but our next topic point is, what are we, as in Media Moses, doing now?
Yes. Okay. Well, let me talk a little bit about the last thing you said, because I appreciate you bringing that up again, because I think I had gotten thrown off enough to where I was like, was I really talking about what we're going to be doing? I don't think I fully talked about that. What I did is I talked about Possum Trot and how this is an example of how culture can make a difference. And so, a film can make a difference in this way, but even more than just the film, right? Like, because what's going on with Sound of Freedom? Like, does anybody know? Like, I don't know. So without like continued discussions and debate about this whole topic, right? At a place like Media Moses, this topic can become, can kind of blow away, and people can forget about it and move on to the next thing, right? So, but for many people, they need something like Sound of Freedom to stay in the zeitgeist and to stay relevant. Why? Because they might have lost a child. Their family might have been irreparably harmed by human trafficking, right? So we have to remember, folks, that the world outside of our living room is very real. And you can pretend that it's not real and there's no issues going on in Washington, D.C. or in Los Angeles or in Mexico. But I assure you that it's real. And there are real issues. There are real children who don't have parents right now, for example. And so, like, we can be part of that solution, or we can just be kind of, part of the problem, frankly. And so we want to be part of the solution here. We want to be talking about things that matter. And we want to discuss art, entertainment, and all the values associated with this. So what we plan to do more of is more of this kind of thing. And so, I actually, there's films I have planned, there's shows I have planned. I plan to make shows that discuss some of the stuff I plan to discuss, for example, are, there's this show, Cultural Warfare, which is, my projects, my opinions, my reacts. What if I react to something, if we talk in some kind of journalistic fashion about media or art. We'll be doing some of that here, but it's from my perspective. But as things become more official, more professional, more about MediaMoses.com, right? We're going to be talking. We're going to be starting the Media Moses Weekly show, which obviously is a weekly show where we talk about what's on the site. We talk about what's going on in media this week, and ham it up a little bit, and maybe do an interview, and then there's a podcast I'm working on called the OFB, which is obligatory faith-based, where we talk about faith-based media, faith-based culture and entertainment, film, all that stuff. So I hope to have pastors and church laymen, but also like artists and Christian artists and people like this to discuss culture. So, and our involvement in culture. I hope to also have an interview show that's for stars, celebrities, people who are making big moves in the culture. That's called Timely Interviews, and it's an interview show. So that's basically all that is. I hope eventually to make like a late night type show. This is like far in the future, obviously. But I value these kinds of shows. I think that they're fun and valuable. And I think they haven't gone out of the zeitgeist. I think that they're still very popular kinds of shows. And they can be done on YouTube. They don't have to be on some kind of network or something like this. They can be done on YouTube. But they can be high quality YouTube shows, right? That's what we want. So this is how Media Moses distinguishes ourselves from a lot of Hollywood stuff, right? Is we embrace the YouTube stuff. We don't want to shun it or think that it's lowbrow. No, we do want to have these to be high quality shows, but we're not going to shun the technology. We're not going to shun the fans and the fan building process. I think that's a very important thing to embrace, right? And we, but it's not just shows, right? Our site is MediaMoses.com, where we have articles about all these subjects, and our competitors are the Hollywood Reporter, Variety, and Deadline. These are Hollywood entertainment trades, and they're publications as well. And we intend to also have physical publication, some kind of possibly like a magazine, right? Like that's my hope. My longer term goal is to have a magazine, which is a lot like a lifestyle, entertainment, culture magazine. So that's kind of like a long-term goal. And a lot of these other things come before that, but I think that's a pretty important goal to really make MediaMoses.com a real thing, in my view, is to start heading down that path where we're like doing really high quality photo shoots and really great graphics and layouts and stuff, and really good journalism and storytelling. So that's going to be a lot of fun once we get there. Other stuff I plan to dip my toe in, I mean that very ironically, is to do awards shows and have events, right? These are physical events where we have possibly a festival-style event or a convention-style event or an awards show-style event. And this will all be done locally, but also online. So that's something we plan to also do. and so you were then asking, because there's lots of other things I could mention about what we plan to do. I also have a film planned, which is not really Media Moses. It's my film company called Trithia Film. But my film is called Thin Days, and I'm working on that right now. It's a black and white drama, and
Well, what? So you're working on that now?
yes, I am working on writing it, and also I plan to do some location scouting soon. So
What other things is Media Moses working on now?
right now we have the website, we have which is articles on these subjects, and we have Cultural Warfare with Jon Croft, which is this show. But this show is primarily just me and my opinion. And then we're going to be and then we're also we're working on, like I said, Media Moses Weekly. I hope that that's coming soon. And
At the When We Love Jesus podcast?
yes, thank you. I'm sorry. Yes, we have your podcast, When We Love Jesus. And we're working on talking to a lot of people right now about helping us with our podcasts, but also trying to get our film movement going, which is called Conwave. It's conservative wave. It's of film, and there's requirements for the film movement. We have a certain aesthetic we're forming, and this is done in the vein of the French New Wave. We're inspired by the French New Wave, and Italian neorealism, and so this is kind of like one of our big film inspirations. So all black and white, and that's hopefully coming in the future. But yeah, I'm working on that right now as well. And yeah, I mean, we're not able to do a lot right now, but because we're using the subscription model at our website, and this is just going to take time for us to build up and start making income from this. But I also plan to have events and some, like I have two children's books I plan to publish, and so that I wrote those maybe 6 months to a year ago, and I'm working on getting those published, and then also working on some music, but that's kind of that's a lot of stuff to be doing. But I didn't mention that I found a musician for a composer for the film Thin Days. And so you introduced me to him. Is it David? I forget his last name. Something like, not Lambda, but something like that.
Well, he has a YouTube channel called Deep Instrumentals.
Yes, I think it's Lastra. David Lastra. Okay. That might be it. Yeah. But yeah, he does deep instrumentals, and he's on YouTube and on Instagram, and he talks about how, like, hey, if you want to work on a project, let me know. And so we reached out to him, and he said he's very interested, and he does the kind of stuff I'm interested in for Thin Days. So this is a very contemplative, faith-based, kind of an art house, faith-based film, which is unheard of to do an art house, faith-based film. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I plan to do. But we also I hope to have, maybe this will be part of my YouTube channel, but I hope to maybe have a meetup of some kind where there's When We Love Jesus, which is, I hope us to have, for us to have a Bible study. So
Yes.
that's a very important thing we have planned in the near future.
Yes.
But also, I hope to have a Mythopoeia and Inkling appreciation group that meets and talks about Mythopoeia and talks about George MacDonald and stuff like this. So fairy tales, and a lot of people, they just don't know how important these stories are. And so these like when you get into film, a lot of people, they're like, oh, did you get a script, or where are you going to get your script, or stuff like this. And many people don't realize just how important stuff like public domain work is. Like, because half of your film is your script. Like, it's just like, if you don't have a good script, it's going to be really hard to make a good film. So you need to start with a really good script. And so that's the thing, is you're just suddenly going to be a great writer. Like, that doesn't just happen. Like, I've seen a lot of mediocre scripts from people who think that they can just write a script, no problem. I've been one of those people as well. Like, just write a script, it's going to be good. No, like, it takes more than that. Well, imagine you had an enormous amount of public domain work that you could just adapt to a film, right? To a script from a book. Well, luckily we have a ton of that work, right? In people like George MacDonald, who was writing in the mid and late 1800s. So, like, his work is incredible. And a lot of Christians don't even know about him. And he was the writer who inspired Tolkien and Lewis. So it's like, how is it people don't know who this guy is and all of his work? I mean, he's got like 60-something novels. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, why? Why are we not, like, utilizing this resource? And they're not all like fantasy. Like, a lot of his stuff is fantasy. He doesn't do sci-fi. He does fantasy, which is really fairy tales, and which are great, by the way. People scoff at fairy tales. I'm like, you're watching Snow White with your kids. You're scoffing at fairy tales. What are you doing? But then he also writes a lot of kind of like Jane Eyre type stuff, dramas from that period, Scotland, quite often Scotland, or England or Ireland. But the thing about film, people, you don't have to do it in the location that they wrote this in. Like, you could do it any location you want, but it's got to have some kind of, like, it could have some Scottish brogue in it, but that's okay. Like, that could be fun. So I plan, from some of his dramatic work, to make a Western, black and white Western of one. I haven't picked out which book it's going to be yet. It could be Elginbrod or one of those. But, like, he's got some really, really good stuff. I was reading one of them, and I was just like a few pages in, like 10 pages in, and I was like starting to cry already. I'm just like, this is such a beautiful story already. Like, I'm 10 pages in, and I'm like, this is so beautiful. So, like, this kind of stuff can be a black and a white Western. There's no reason you can't have a Scotsman in the Old West. Like, those people were in the Old West. You had people from Ireland and Scotland and Germany and, like, all over the place. China in the Old West, like, that exists. So, like, that could be really fun. And, like, adapting a work is still hard, but it's not nearly as hard as writing your own original script. Goodness. Like, the decisions and choices are endless with your own original work. But when you're adapting something, you're getting the real spirit of it, of the story, and then you're just making sure not to lose that, the morals of the story. And some things can be moved around here and there. Like some scenes might get eliminated or whatever, or that might be unnecessary to the plot or, what have you. But like you want the essential parts of the story to show up in your film. And so, like possibly study other adaptations, to get the right mixture. But like these are great opportunities. And we have a ton of this work available. You just got to avail yourself of it. And so this becomes part of our goal, to have these these kind of event meetings, whether it's like a convention or award show or a festival, and to form community and build community. And I even want to do a black and white film festival.
Yes.
Because I think it's going to go very nicely in with Conwave. And it's going to become, in my view, a kind of like an art house festival for indie filmmakers to talk about old Hollywood and film noir and the French New Wave and all these old, we can play a lot of these old films at the festival and then discuss the history of these films and then play our new films that have been converted to black and white, right? And talk about how this changes the film, talk about how this really contributes to the community of black and white film and classic cinema, and how a modern film movement can also kind of like use these same themes and appreciation for this real silver screen, right? Like what cinema used to be and what it can be again, frankly. So, I don't want to hear this stuff from Hollywood about cinema's dead and theaters are dead. This is, I think this is kind of like overblown, frankly, and I don't believe them. Theater is still a great way to make money, and you might have to four-wall it and do put some money forward, but you can do quite well, which Angel Studios has shown, and how Hollywood is losing their theatrical shelf space, and Angel Studios is picking it up, so they're just going to end up making more money. As they pick up more theatrical shelf space. So, there's potential here, friends. I hope I answered basically where we're headed, and there's more to talk about, but in almost every form of media and art, I'm also working on a book about a lot of this stuff called The Moses We Need. And so this is about the exodus out of Hollywood and why we must do it and how we must do it and all of the ways in which it's going to be required if we're going to build culture, all the things we have to do to rebuild our culture and to do it without Hollywood and without the mainstream media. So we're going to have to do that if we want to survive as a culture. Is there an additional question? I don't remember.
No, that was the last one. What are we doing now?
What are we doing? Yeah.
I think you answered that really well. I think
good.
It's exciting. You've definitely got multiple things going at the moment.
Yes,
and
absolutely. A lot.
Many projects just getting built upon in the planning process, and so there's a lot of potential here.
We're going to need a lot of help. Like there's going to be a lot of places where we're going to have to stop and then go through growing pains, because I sincerely want to expand this into a real power horse of journalism and entertainment discussion. This needs to be something real. So, in my view, this is why you start a film festival or something, because, you're getting attention in another way, and then you're redirecting that attention to like the magazine or the website. And this is just how these things go. But I also really intend, and this is difficult, but it's very necessary. I also intend to have like to try to attract stars and celebrities and artists that are in the conservative and the faith-based world to interview with us and have real, like, powerful and fun conversations about media and about their latest projects and about what's going on in the culture. And we want to have these deep conversations with these folks. So, we really care about that, and I intend to pursue that. Like I'm hoping to talk to a journalist. You know her, but on Monday we intend to have a good conversation with a journalist to see like where we can go with this and how to attract some seed funds or something. And so there's just like a lot we can do here. And I want to have some great like on the beach like photo shoots with actors and actresses and musicians and these people. And then have a great interview and like I just think those things are valuable,
Yeah.
I did get to do that once. Remember, I worked with the Evangelia, and who's a great pianist, local pianist, and so we interviewed her for like a good hour. And I never did like a photo shoot with her, but that's possible in the future. But like it was just kind of a beginning point for us when we were starting out, and so that's kind of where we always wanted to go, is these kinds of interviews. But like then we had to get the website started and things, and these things can be difficult. So, that's where we're at now. I hope that cultural warfare is contributing to that effort. I don't know, but like, at least we're able to have these discussions here and talk about things on a very real level. And it's a bit informal, but that's okay. I want to make it more formal as we go along and have a lot of fun but like have, some great local, thinkers. And, maybe I can convince someone like David Gornowski to come or someone like Jeremy Licata, which supposedly he lives in Florida. But like, some local people who could really have an influence in the culture. So that's what we're working towards, So yeah, I guess that's Media Moses. And I really hope that you'll check out the site. If you go to MediaMoses.com, we put out articles almost every day. Sometimes we've been a little slow lately because we've been getting a lot of stuff done. But I put out I try to do 5 articles a week. That's what I try to do. But I've been doing a lot of videos too. So.
Yeah, you've been doing a lot of great shorts.
Oh yeah, you like those, huh?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, those are on Instagram and YouTube. If you guys want to check out the cultural warfare shorts.
Yes, and I think I'm on at Jon Edward Croft on Instagram, and I'm on at Jon Edward Croft on X, and then I'm on Cultural Warfare with Jon Croft on YouTube. And obviously you can see me on MediaMoses.com, but also I'm on Locals. I decided for my Cultural Warfare show to have a Locals. So we do have one of those. And And we're on Rumble, although we don't really post a lot on Rumble yet. So,
Not yet.
not yet. So, yeah. I'm hoping, honey, that we can start our Bible study soon. But we're not quite there yet. I'm not quite ready for that yet.
Yes.
But we'll see.
Yeah, that sounds great. I would love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm doing. You can find me on Rebecca Loves Jesus at YouTube and Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and Jesus Loves Rebecca on Instagram. And yeah, we've been doing some fun. We're doing a podcast called When We Love Jesus, and it's going to be 7 episodes, I believe, and I think we've done 4 or 5 already, and you can listen to that on the YouTubes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I wish, I don't know. I wish we had something else more to say about it, but that's pretty much it. I mean, I structured it, organized it pretty well, and I guess we were just so efficient. We got it all done already. So that's pretty much, what we plan to do. And I mean, like I say, there's a lot of goals to plan that we're planning in the next few years. I mean, I even have a studio I plan, hopefully, to build or something. And there's even like a mentorship program I plan to try to run for filmmaking and for media and journalism. And like, what else can you say? Like, this is a real effort to make a difference. And, I think that people just lose the fact that having these discussions and curating art is just as important as the art itself. People really forget that, and we used to have a very robust curation process in like the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Like there's a lot of, basically the newspapers governed that, yes, but it was fairly robust, And now I feel like, there's all just the YouTubers and the bloggers, and there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is if they're really good curators, then that's going to be good. But if they're just kind of like amateurish, then that's not so good. And it's not that the good ones don't exist. It's that it's hard to find them through all the amateurs. And so there's a lot of competition, and there's a lot of like, pretend curation. It's just extremely opinionated without having like a real science and art behind like real criticism. Like why do you prefer this film over this other film? So like, and what does it really say? And so there's a lot of cultural analysis that's failing right now, and much of it is muddied by politics and ideology. So again, that's not authentic curation and culture building. It's inauthentic. So we plan to mitigate that with real authentic stuff, and to give you quality analysis of stuff. I'm not a critic myself, so that's why that's taken some time for us to do something like that on the site. But we refer you to other critics right now. But we plan to jump, into the deep end at some point with criticism. So that's coming up, hopefully. So, all right. Well, thank you guys for hearing me out, and I hope that you are interested in this project. Subscribe to us at mediamoses.com. Get our updates. Comment on our stuff. It really, really is helpful to us. So I appreciate you guys, and hopefully we'll have some, a subscription model coming up soon where you can contribute and pay something in to help us out so we can grow this business. So appreciate you guys, and thanks so much, and standing for the culture, and we'll see you guys next week.